Anik and Kenny Florian podcast. John Anik and Kenny Florian.
I love them. I can't get enough of them.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy on call. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness. Hyperbole.
There are a couple of absolutely self-involved bullshit artists.
Here are your hosts, John Anik and Kenny Florian.
Next shot, bang.
I mean, if I knew we were getting Ray Longo dancing to the Boston Garden rap, we would lead every show with you. But yes, to the listeners out there, when we make you wait until Thursday, of course we lead the show with the star of the program, Ray Longo. Raymond, Ken Flo, good day to you. How we feeling?
Beautiful day in New York, man. It's November, and I was outside, no shirt on, just a pair of shorts, 70 degrees, beautiful. Beautiful day in New York. Beautiful.
Getting the ladies to flock, huh, Ray?
Yeah, it's flock away. But
yeah, right. The smell either has them flock away or but I tell you, Raymond, I mean, I don't know what time it is. It's actually 11:59 a.m. Eastern. Good to have everybody with us. Thursday, November 7th. It's 2024, episode 523 of the Anik and Florian podcast. Raymond, you sound like you were outside ripping a lung dart. You sound fantastic.
Wow, a lung dart. What the hell is a dirt stick? What the hell are we doing? How are we starting this
fight
show
week.
off?
We have to bring that up.
Yeah. Unbelievable. A dirt stick. Yeah.
It is a good time to bring up lung darts when it is Carlos Prates fight week, Ken Flo. I mean, that man knows his way around a cigarette, does he not? I mean, does he not?
Absolutely. He's like, I have so much of an advantage. I'm going to smoke a cig before I go out there and beat someone's ass. Yeah.
Yeah. Hilarious.
Wait, does he smoke?
He smokes cigarettes, man. He smokes
it's funny.
Fight, supposedly.
I had a kid in the gym who had great cardio. And one day I walk in, I come to the gym. He's outside smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
Go, what the hell are you doing? He goes, you didn't know I smoke? So I don't know. Some people, I guess it just doesn't affect.
Yeah. You open up those lungs, man. Open up those lungs, right? Send a little smoke down in them, supposedly a very recuperative organ. More medical stuff coming up later from Ken Flo. So I did notice a tweet this morning. I don't know what you call it now, x.com, a post from @KennyFlorian on X. Yeah. Well, hey, man. Hey, you push this out to your hundreds of thousands of followers so I can bring it.
So what did he do? He hit a home run with the crypto. That's what happened.
Oh, I mean, I think I buried the lead. Let me just go onto my Gemini application right now as we continue this conversation. But no, Ray, here's the post from Ken Flo on X today. And here's what it is. ESPN, you're worth billions of dollars. Make a streaming app that works.
Oh, wow.
John, I get up. I'm up at 4:30, 5 in the morning. I'm going to do my research for the Anik and Florian podcast. I get up. I'm on ESPN. I got it on my laptop. So it was on my laptop. But I have issues on my phone. I have issues on my television. And I'm watching some fights. And, about 2 minutes in, all of a sudden, it cancels. It just shuts off. And I go back again. Same thing. I can't do my research. It just keeps shutting off on the damn app. I'm like, come on, man. And this is like a regular thing. Come on.
Yeah.
They have a bunch of money. Fix the app. You guys get money by people watching sports. You want them to watch sports. Keep it going.
I don't know what it is about Ken Flo. I don't know if it's the Bitcoin apps that are on your phone that are clogging things up or what it is, Ken Flo. But you're right. Yeah, perpetual issues for Ken Flo. I had issues on Saturday night. I mean, the UFC application is your friend, but certainly live, I was having some issues with that ESPN application. Hopefully they could nip that in the bud. Raymond, so where are you watching these fights on Saturday night for Brandon Moreno and Amir Albazi? I mean, you're not out to dinner, right? You're home watching these fights.
No, I was actually at a wedding that night. So I had to come home and watch them when I got home. But unfortunately, my app didn't cut out. So I was able to watch until like 2 in the morning and whatever. So I probably don't remember anything.
So what exactly do you do and not do at a wedding, Ray? Do you dance?
No.
Do you eat?
Yes.
All right, just name one thing you ate at the wedding that tasted good and one thing that tasted not good.
Oh, so they had some desserts. I wouldn't even know what to call them, but that was good.
Okay, what didn't you like? Obviously, I mean, if you're going straight to the dessert,
It's funny. I'll tell you, this is my friends, right? So I tell a guy, because I was at a 40th birthday party there like 10 years ago. So I said, look, I'm at the Riviera. And the guy goes, this is the text I get back. They wrap their salad in plastic at 10 a.m. in the morning. I go, who the hell, where are you getting this info from? But I'll tell you, the salad tasted like it was wrapped in plastics. I go, he might be right. I go to, and the guy lives in the area, so I don't know where he got his info, but it was right. But shout out to Joey Rocky, who got married, good friend of mine. Heard
outstanding.
Rocky's the best, man.
Yeah. Rocky.
We used to do accounting. I go way back. We go way back. A lot of funny stories we could get into sometime, but maybe not now.
Yeah, maybe not now. Just stay off the salad. So it looks like you were out and about today. You got a cup of coffee to go. No cold brew today, Raymond. Just going with that stuff or what?
I'm down to decaf. I gave up caffeine.
Wow.
A couple of months ago. Yeah.
Right. He replaced it with nicotine right earlier today.
Oh, God.
We have a lot of things to get into today, but before we get into the mixed martial arts stuff, as some of you may know, our UFC live production team lost a gentle giant to be sure, but Derek Thompson, one of our good friends, Kenny and I worked with him at ESPN way back in the day. Best friend of our executive producer, Zach Candido, passed away totally unexpectedly at 39 years of age in Las Vegas. And many of us were just with him in Abu Dhabi. My last interaction with him was at Power Slap. He has been a longtime supporter of me and of Ken Flo. We had just sent him 4 T-shirts from the Anik and Florian podcast, actually at his request, including the Ken Flo Wolverine one. He was just always such an encourager. I played on a rec basketball team with him and Zach in Connecticut back in the day when we were all working at ESPN, and Derek had played college hoops, Ken Flo, at Bridgewater State University, so he was our best player, and I loved just watching him light it up. And he was understated, not the most outspoken guy, but Zach and others did a lot to, I think, sort of surface his personality, and just a nice man. And I think for a lot of us, Kenny, I know when I gave you the news, it hit you particularly harshly. I don't know, man, just still digesting this awful news in this harsh world in which we live.
100%, man. It's more of a reality now as we get older, I guess, and seeing our friends and people that we know pass away, man, it's never easy. And Derek was one of those guys, and he followed us over to Fox, right? He was over at Fox, and while I was there, and the words that came to mind when I think about him is gentle giant. He was a really big dude. He loved jiu-jitsu. He loved sports, but he loved MMA in particular. I really would enjoy the conversations that I would have with him, because he was very quiet, as you mentioned, but his eyes would light up anytime fighting would come up, and he'd have a question for me, or he'd talk about jiu-jitsu and how he was planning on competing or doing this or doing that. And we knew a lot of the same people that he would train with, and he will be missed, man. He was one of those guys that just really was a very, very kind soul. And that was hard to hear, man.
Yeah, but I didn't know him, John, but 39 is just, wow, that's way too young, man. That's young. Do you mind if I ask how he passed? Do we know?
So we don't know at this point in time. And no.
That's just too fucking young, man. It's something's off.
Yeah, I know, Kenny, you mentioned sort of some of the training partners, and Fabricio Camois, Marengo out there in Southern California, yes, was a guy that he trained under for a long time. And, were it not for concerns about CTE and things like that, and perhaps getting a relatively late start in martial arts, there were a lot of us that would have loved to have seen Derek in a mixed martial arts capacity. Just massive hands, and really just had a good frame for MMA, Kenny, really long arms. I mean, I got to think it's an 80-inch or so reach, if not even longer than that. Never mind what he could have done in fucking Power Slap. So to my dear friend, Derek Thompson, whom I affectionately referred to as D-Rock, and to the Candido family. You know, this hits me particularly hard because of Zach and my kinship with Zach and Zach's children, particularly his eldest son, Miles. I mean, Derek was an uncle on so many levels, right? So I just think about that family, and there is a GoFundMe page for Derek's mom, Gail. And if anybody wants to support, we'd certainly appreciate that. All right, let us get into some other matters at hand. Headlines is brought to you by Cuervo. Now's a good time to enjoy the tequila that invented tequila. So a lot of different directions in which we could go. If I could. Bilal Muhammad is out of the UFC 210 main event, unable to make the walk for his first title defense, which was to come just 4+ months after he wrestled the belt away from Leon Edwards. Bone infection in his foot, had to put a PICC line in his arm for IV antibiotics. That'll be in there for 40 days or so, 6 weeks, no physical activity. And for Bilal Muhammad, let's just hope that he falls in line with that imperative, no physical activity. But Kenny and Ray, it's osteomyelitis, and if this is not treated correctly, this is really problematic. But Ray, you know, the guy nearly lost his toe, and you know, hopefully he returns to health. And I think in the case of an athlete like this, hopefully he doesn't rush it, because with respect to my friend, I feel like that's kind of his nature.
Yeah, well, that would be a really big mistake to rush something like that, because some of these things like that, they don't go away that easy, man. It's not. I had a kid one time, and he got a bone infection before his first fight, and he never. I'm not saying this as a weird thing, but like, he never even fought. He never even recovered from that, and he was a young kid. But you know, you got to really, really be, like you said, you got to be careful. And as much as antibiotics, you know, they do have their place, man. You just, you know, that's a lot. He's 100% has to be careful, and I wouldn't rush that at all.
Yeah, 100%. I've never had a bone infection that is much more serious, where it's threatening, you know, that particular limb. But I have had it in, you know, I've had massive skin infections in my knee and my elbow and elsewhere. And those are never fun to begin with. But yeah, Ray, I think the other thing to consider is the antibiotics that you take. It's like, okay, even if you are solving it or trying to solve it with your antibiotics, your body is also kind of going through hell fighting that thing as well. And I've fought with antibiotics, and I've had some bad performances because of it. You think you're fine, and your will kind of gets you through it, but your body's not going to be at 100% oftentimes. And unfortunate for Bilal, who has been an absolute road warrior for the UFC, has stepped up on many occasions, unable to do so here, and unfortunate for him as he was approaching his first title defense.
So sometimes this condition can require amputation of the infected joint to prevent further spreading. The PICC line, oftentimes used in chemotherapy and often inserted into a vein in the upper arm, threaded into some sort of vein near the heart. So that's going to be in for a while. And yeah, you just hope for the best, because certainly if that toe were to be compromised, you know, so too would, I think, part of his game and career, you know. So we wish our dear friend Bilal Muhammad nothing but the best. And of course, arguably the classiest man in MMA was to be first-time title challenger Shavkat Rakhmonov, who immediately on social media, you know, was toasting to Bilal's health. So in terms of Shavkat Rakhmonov, Ken Flo, seemed as though he would have liked an interim title defense on December 7th. We sit here live Thursday, November 7th. And thanks to everybody for joining us live today on YouTube. Kenny, I'm not sure that is going to happen. We have a high-profile welterweight main event now, December 14th, between Ian Machado Gary and Joaquin Buckley. Jack Della Maddalena seemingly is still on the men. Colby Covington now is campaigning publicly for a fight with him. But Kenny, a lot of different things go into interim title fights. You know, I mean, I know largely I am pro interim championship fights. I don't think it's a big deal for Bilal if one were to happen here, but I do think there is some promotional appetite to preserve this main event between Bilal and Shavkat, because I think, Kenny, they think it's a good, viable, valuable, potentially marketable fight. So what do you think, Ken Flo, about how the UFC might proceed given the news we have now about the welterweight champ?
Well, I certainly agree with what you said. And so I don't think it's necessary to have an interim fight. I think anytime you're looking past maybe 6 months, 6 to 8 months, that timeline away from where the title fight would have been, that maybe kind of justifies an interim belt or something, especially if there's a lot of uncertainty about the return of someone like Bilal. I think he'll definitely be back within that time frame. And it was a great fight that I was really looking forward to. So that's unfortunate for both men. I know they were both looking forward to it as well. And I guess we're gonna have to kind of move on a little bit.
So it's interesting in terms of these interim championships, Ray, right? Because in one breath, Bilal could be like, why an interim? I just won the belt on July 27th. But correct me if I'm wrong, Ray. If Shavkat Rakhmonov is the interim champion when he and Bilal fight, and certainly there is risk, right, that maybe Shavkat wins the interim championship in an absolute war, and then you're trying to do him and Bilal, and you have to wait till International Fight Week 2025. I understand that inherent risk for Bilal, but would he not potentially make more money champion versus champion? I guess I just don't see a ton of downside. I don't love, in terms of the calendar, quickly anointing or crowning an interim champion, as we show you some of the viewer discretion advised images on the side of Bilal Muhammad's toe. But Ray, to me, I don't see a lot of downside if you wanted to bolster a pay-per-view with an interim welterweight championship fight, at least from Bilal's standpoint. Do you?
Okay, you cut out for a minute, but as far as the interim title, I mean, look, if it
can you get rid of that image? Thanks. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm done looking at that.
Is that the toe? That's it. That was him.
Yeah.
But anyway, I didn't hear everything you said, but I got the gist of it. I'm not a big fan of the interim titles, but you're right. If you can make more money and it could be done on a timely basis, then I'll agree with you. But I just think psychologically, the guy won the title in July. You got to give him a chance to recover. I mean, I think it would just be jumping the gun way too soon. And I think psychologically, it's not good for Bilal. He struggled to get the shot. Then he won the shot. Then they're going to take it away from. I personally, I don't like it. I think give him a chance to heal. If somewhat the doctors come back and say, look, there's a year and a half. Yeah, then you do the interim title. But if it's a matter of 4 or 5 months, you got to give the guy the shot to do it. And I don't think the money. I don't think the money would change champ against champ, because I don't know. They didn't even Bilal's got to get a chance to get rolling as the champion. I personally don't like it.
I think that's a great take. And Kenny, psychologically, there is a component there, right, in terms of maybe not undercutting a champion as his reign begins. Yes. I guess I just don't necessarily see it that way, but they were trying to, in short order, turn Bilal around, because this UFC 310 fight card maybe at one point was earmarked for Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler. It needed a main event. So, Kenny, psychologically, do you think there's anything there in terms of maybe Bilal and not wanting to sort of undercut him, so to speak, if you're the promoter?
I'm not sure I see it that way necessarily. I think that for Bilal, I don't think it matters. I think if you told Bilal, hey, this could lead to more money, he'll say, yeah, go ahead, bring it. Let's do it.
That's different.
So if it's advantageous to his pocketbook, then does he carry a pocketbook? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But his wallet, it's a purse. Yeah, a sling bag. Then, I think by all means, bring it. Let's do it. But I don't know. I think more than anything else, it hurts the fight maybe in promotionally, in that it delays Bilal, right? Bilal is a new champion. Maybe not so many people are on to Bilal and how good he really is. So having that level of consistency, I think, is really advantageous for a fighter who's making that name for himself. And Bilal wants to stay active. So the fact that we're delaying that performance from Bilal a little bit for people to kind of see just how good he is again and again and again might hurt him a little bit. So that's
I just think he's not one of those guys the promotion is behind and pushing and has out there. So that, like Kenny said, he's got to get some momentum going where he could build like a good following up. I mean, I don't know. I
don't know. I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying, but I kind of feel like them making the Ian Machado, Gary, Joaquin Buckley fight and seemingly not doing an interim welterweight championship speaks to them getting behind Bilal and wanting to do
Okay.
that fight with Shavkat and doing it while Shavkat is undefeated as a challenger and not an interim champion. And I do think in terms of the calendar, one thing you know about Bilal, and he's not supposed to sweat for 6 to 8 weeks. Best of luck keeping that guy out of the gym for 6 weeks, Kenny.
Yeah, he better be careful.
Well, to your point, here's the thing. Anytime you get something like a bone infection or these massive infections that really affect you, where you have to put a pick inside your body, you know, Ryan Hall has dealt with that. Damian Maia has dealt with that. Some other people I know, and it can really delay you a lot. So I think this is kind of a hedge by the UFC to put together this fight in case Bilal can't fight for another 6 months or so, because that is a possibility with infections. Who knows? That way they have someone as maybe a backup plan to fight for an interim belt. So, you know, I think the UFC is doing whatever it can to protect itself, and rightfully so as a business.
Yeah, I agree with. I think they're setting themselves up very nicely with the Gary fight and the other guy, and but that'll work out really well.
Can I just quickly ask you, Ray, about Ian Machado, Gary, and then we can move on to Brandon Moreno and anything else that you got before we ceremoniously let you get on with the rest of your day.
Yeah.
So I pushed out these tweets a few days ago, back to back, and I'm curious what you think. So I wrote, Ian Machado, Gary is 15-0. Coming off back-to-back signature wins against the hard-to-beat Michael Venom Page and Jeff Neal. He is assuredly worthy of a title shot, and yet here he is fighting down in the rankings so as to headline the UFC show in Tampa. Respect, no. And then I wrote, I love me some new Mansa. I'm an unabashed, on-the-record Joaquin Buckley supporter. He deserves this Ian Gary fight, but it's about time Gary is acknowledged for repeatedly accepting tough fights, never idling, and keeping it moving when higher-ranked guys say no. And I understand that maybe for myriad reasons, Ian Machado Gary is a hard guy for the fan base to get behind, juxtaposed against a Shavkat Rakhmonov. And some of that maybe has to do with the relative quality of his wins. But, Ray, in terms of Ian's strength of schedule and the names on it and the challenges that he has passed, he's every bit, in my mind, as deserving as Shavkat Rakhmonov of a championship fight. And yet here he is fighting down in the rankings and taking on a very risky, primal fighter in Joaquin Buckley. So I'm just trying to give credit to the guy, whether he's the people's choice or not, Ray.
Oh, I think what you said is 100% right. You know, you got Ian, you know, he's a nice guy, but very outgoing, outspoken or wacky, whatever you want to say. And then you got Shavkat, who's just like quiet, like he's like a quiet killer. He just goes in, does his thing, and comes out. So there's a total separation there. So whatever personality you like, I think that's the guy you're going with. But as far as what you said with his signature wins, he's right where he wants to be. And if it wasn't Rakhmonov, it's him fighting for the title. So I like what he's doing because he's staying busy, and he's staying busy against a guy that's been looking pretty good. So that's a championship mentality. If you believe in yourself, you're going to have to fight these guys anyway. And again, they might offer him more money, just to have that type of fight. And that's all. I think it's all good, but I think you're spot on with what you said about him. And he definitely, look, that whole group right there deserves something. So it's coming. So we'll see what happens with Bilal and how quick he recovers. But Gary's at this point no joke.
Ken Flo.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, Buckley's a dangerous fight for anyone in that division. Yeah. He has a lot of momentum right now, and not only dangerous for your rankings, but dangerous for your health. This guy can crack. And Ian Machado Gary is another guy who likes to stand up and trade. And, I think not every fight is going to be perfect, and not every fighter is going to be liked by everybody, but you cannot knock or criticize what Gary has been able to do in this very difficult UFC division. I think there was a point where he was taking the right fights, smart fights, rightfully so, but now he's taking a lot of dangerous fights and proving that he is elite. So if he can get by Buckley yet again, I think there's not a whole lot you can criticize at this point. He'll be ready for a title shot in the very near future.
Yeah, I think they're doing the right thing with all three of those guys. So
I think so too.
Yeah,
I think that a Shavkat Rakhmonov, Ian Machado Gary fight as undefeated fighters for an interim championship would have made a lot of sense. Cody, with respect, I know you wrote it's unfair to ask two guys to fight for a title in 6 weeks. Fight game's unfair, life's unfair. We've seen many circumstances in which guys and girls, men and women, have had to step up on short notice. I felt like that fight would have made some sense, but I agree. Promotionally, I think they're proceeding in the right way, but I do think it's interesting, and I didn't mean to belabor this, but people just think it's an afterthought. What? So Shavkat Rakhmonov fights Michael Venom Page and just takes him down and chokes him unconscious, right? As if like beating MVP or finishing him is any sort of easy task. Right. Or beating Jeff Neal. I mean, is that not a better win than Stephen Wonderboy Thompson? I don't know. I'm not thinking fan appeal. I love Shavkat Rakhmonov. He gave me chocolates from Kazakhstan. He's the fucking man, right? Ooh. I'm talking straight meritocracy, and Ian Gary deserves his credit. Hey, Ray, before we let you go, is there anything else on the front of your mind, the frontal lobe? I mean, some stuff on Max Holloway potentially, and Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje, who could be next for those guys. Brandon Moreno looking great in the main event. How was that fight night? I mean, we stopped the wedding talk. I mean, are you a little bit lathered? Are you a little bit lathered when you go back to watch Brandon Moreno at 1:30 a.m. in the morning, or what?
No, I wasn't. I definitely wasn't lathered.
Sober as a judge. Sober as a judge.
I was the designated driver that night, so I let my wife drink and I just mingled, so to say.
Man, right there. Look at that.
There you go. Always stepping up to the plate.
Are you a star at these weddings? What is your star power at these weddings? Just be honest.
I mean, a little bit.
Yeah,
a little bit. A little bit. No, you did insult them. Yeah, a little bit.
So, were you the most famous person at the wedding?
I believe I was, which is
there
not,
you go.
Which is not saying much. You know what I mean? Oh man, I remember.
We're gonna turn that into a clip. Ray Longo says he's most famous guy at wedding. We're gonna put that on social media. Right?
You know, when Sarah won the title, we went to some affair at like Tavern on the Green. I think they were, I don't know what the hell it was, but we were there, and I'm looking around, and they had, I think the artist Nimoy, what's his name? No, the Leroy Neiman. Yep. Yeah, Leroy Neiman. And then they had the guy from The Godfather, Carlos, singing. And I'm like, dude, you might be the most famous guy here. Like they were trying to bring out some people, but I go, this is actually pathetic at this point. There was one other guy, I think Jay Black from Jay and the Americans. I go, Sarah, you're the most famous guy here. This is incredible. But I don't know. Yeah, so the wedding was, I probably was, but it is what it is. What else we got?
Well, no, we're going to let you go after we get a few comments from you on Brandon Moreno, but I'm just trying to think about who was the most famous man or woman at my wedding. So, I mean, it was probably Kenny Florian. I'm just trying to think about who else was there. The late, great Stephan Bonnar was there with a black eye 2 weeks after he won a fight. God bless Stephan Bonnar and his family. Who else was there? I mean, Chris Romano, who is family from Blue Mountain State, if you know that reference, was there. But yeah, I mean, just fighters and media personalities. Ryan Russillo was there, showing up a few minutes before the ceremony looking for socks in the pro shop. Yeah. So yeah, I think Ken Flo is probably the most famous person at my wedding, having fought for the belt.
Wow. There you go, Kenny. That's it.
Little Stephan's a little.
Yeah. A little.
Oh, did Stephan fight for the title, Ken Flo? Oh.
Well, I mean,
oh shoot. Wow.
The Forrest Griffin, that's that whole
Hall of Fame.
I would
put
Stephan. Yeah. All right.
Ken Flo fought for the world title 3 times.
Yeah, 100%. Ken, I'm going with John on this, Kenny.
All right.
The kid that got to be there. The kid that got married did say, "Can we take a picture?" Because nobody believes I know you.
Wow.
I go, well,
that's awesome.
Well, they do now, and I hope they're not disappointed.
No, never. All right, we'll get you out of here on this, Ray. So I don't know the extent to which you ingested this UFC fight night. It sounds like you came home from the wedding and immediately told your lathered wife to go to bed by herself so you could watch Amir Albazi and Aaron Blanchfield. So what was your biggest takeaway from the fight night? Was it Blanchfield? Was it Moreno? Was it anything else?
Man, the Blanchfield fight was real. I thought it was really good. She had to really dig down deep, man, and make a decision to go forward. And that kid's definitely got a winning mentality, because the last fight was kind of a disappointment. And then to go up against somebody like Rose for you, after losing. I give her a lot of credit. I think she was under a lot of pressure, but when it came down to dig in and start swinging with a great strike, as she did that, where I think she was at a disadvantage, but she made it an advantage with just grit and determination and tenacity, and that's what I saw. And then getting the takedowns and controlling the fight. Really great comeback fight for her. And I like both of those girls are absolute sweethearts and a credit to the sport. But I like Blanchfield, man. She's a young kid. And again, coming off a loss like that in front of her hometown in Jersey, I think I give her a lot of credit. It's a mentally strong girl. 100%.
That's some of the best analysis you've given out in the 10-year history of this podcast. We're coming up on our 10-year anniversary in April. You are absolutely right. Her hunger led the dance. Why are you guys laughing at me?
I like it. You're right. I thought it was great.
I mean, dude, can I get can you send me an itinerary for the podcast so I don't have to just rip shit out of my asshole, which I'm not good at? Yeah, I like to think about things a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, am I getting a producer credit if this thing ever wins an award?
Without a doubt.
Yeah, I do a rundown every week that I send to everybody, and yes, I can go over topics. Ken Flo can
I get
as well.
Yeah, I get nothing. I've never seen a rundown.
Part of that is, okay, so you can ask Cody. I think you have his number to send you the fucking rundown. Do you have an electronic mail address? Do you have an email address? I'm the bad guy in every room I'm in. It's ridiculous. I'm perpetually misunderstood. I'm serious. I'm glad you guys think this is.
What else? What do we got? Brandon Moreno. No, I don't have to go.
I have a couple other things, and then we're going to let you go. No, we're going to let you go in 60 seconds, and we'll be sure to get you the questions in advance next week. Can I ask my Bitcoin question or no?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, Cody's saying, be careful what you wish for, right? Make you fucking prep for this show, Ray, fact or fiction, Bitcoin right now is over 76,000.
I think that's got to be a fact, and I don't.
That's a fucking fact, Ken Flo. Is it not? Kenny knows.
Come on, Kenny.
Yeah.
Is it gonna hold?
I think I
sell everything, Kenny.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's above. It should be above 76. So yeah. So we in there.
How was it today? The market yesterday was fantastic.
Yeah, the market just
my portfolio was way up.
Look at you. Are you in the Bitcoin world, Raymond, or no?
No, I'm actually not. I should have dabbled a little bit. But
so I like to peel back the curtain a little bit. I mean, Ken Flo is very much the opposite, and maybe that's the yin and yang that makes this podcast work, right? I'm an oversharer, right? I'll tell my kids how much I spent on Taylor Swift tickets, and that is not necessarily something you should be sharing with your kids. But my father, decorated accountant, he would never share monetary things with me at all. And I feel like they don't necessarily teach this stuff in school. So it's like, yeah, Riley, if you want your kids to be able to go to the Eras Tour, which I deemed as a parent to be a once in a lifetime experience, you got to work for that. What do you think that costs?
Great advice.
So, yeah. So anyway, in terms of Bitcoin, right? So the last time I bought it, I texted Ken Flo, and it's like, hey man, right? And I have like 43 different buys at many different prices, right? I don't have a lot of them, but we got them up. So the last time I texted Ken Flo, however many months ago, I was like, hey man, it's at 61,000 and like, I'm fucking buying today. Right. And he's like, yeah, dude, like I get it. And it's at 76 right now and it's climbing, Raymond, to the moon. Yeah. If you're looking for an emoji, it's the fucking rocket. It's right there in your face.
I tell you, sell it now. Take the money and take the money and run.
No,
right now
we're going to the moon, Ray. Get your moon boots. Get your moon boots.
I should have bought it at 21. I remember back in the gym, it went from like 21 down to 14 at one point. Everybody was like, "Holy shit, this is horrible!" But now is that where it's at? 71.
76 over 76.
Cha-ching.
76.3.
Wow. Look at Kenny right. He's got it right next to him.
Got it right in front of me.
Yeah. I think it's awesome.
All right. Before we let you go, Brandon Moreno.
Great fight.
Great performance. I really do think on any given Saturday night, he's still as good as any 125er in the world. Alexandre Pantoja is such a unique challenge. I really don't know how a human weapon ever puts that man away, but I just think for Moreno, a fresh matchup, handled it really well, and just excited to see him shine again, and nice to see just a good human being smile and have that moment, you know?
Yeah, he kind of shut him down completely. I don't like again, I know there was talk where the guy was in the hospital or he underwent something, but he like again, I don't know if he wasn't himself or Moreno just made him look that way, but Moreno had a great fight. Either whatever it was, he looked great and the other guy looked way off, but he couldn't solve that Moreno puzzle, not even come close. So hats off to Brandon Moreno for doing his thing.
So what's going on the rest of your day, Raymond? I know a little bit of a late start. You've obliged and indulged us on this live episode on a Thursday. So we got a private coming up 1 p.m. Eastern. What's going on the rest of the day? How's Chris Weidman doing 9 days out? I mean, come on.
Weidman sounds fantastic. I'm excited for next week. He seems like he's in the right spot with everything. And he's healthy, which is really good. And what was the question before? What's going on today? Yeah, but today it's nice. I'm going for a bike ride, do some privates, get my workout in. That's it. I'm simple. I'm a simple man. Very simple man.
You look great. Your skin looks great. Your new hip is just firing on all cylinders, so much so that you can bike all around Garden City.
Free Anik and Florian t-shirt for anyone who can go on the street and take a picture of Ray Longo on a bicycle.
That should come in easy.
Send it to our podcast handle on X. Yeah.
At Ray Longo MMA, have a great day and a better evening, and just keep engaging with the masses on X as only you can. There's nothing better than seeing Ray type out LMAO.
I keep it very simple, John. Very simple.
Yeah. My man, have a great day and a better evening. We appreciate
it. Take it easy, guys.
Always.
You guys are the best. I'll talk to you.
There
Raymond.
Take care.
The Ray Longo Minute every week here on the Anik and Florian podcast. He's trying to coordinate a team dinner in New York City. We'll see if that happens. But now joining us from one Hall of Fame coach to another, the General Sayif Saud, leading the charge at Fortis MMA. And what a few months it has been for the squad. Big win for Brandon Moreno. It's good to see you, Coach. How are we doing? What kind of motor vehicle are we in right now?
We're in the truck right now. We just pulled over here. We got our little buddy with us hanging out.
Yes.
Just got done getting worked on. I broke my finger and it got infected, and I had to rehab it and just put some oil in this old motor, man. I'm telling you.
Oh man.
I wonder, you're sort of bringing me to a topic that I wasn't going to bring up, but in terms of your physical health, right? I've been in that coaching room with you, and certainly I think were you to have to get your jaw wired shut, right? Or vocally have to not talk for a couple months, I think that would be really problematic. But if you have to be off a wheel or not able to hold, right, you'd be okay.
No, it's just what happens is, and you guys know this because you live that life as well. It's just you don't get time, right? I mean, we went from Salt Lake, then we went to Abu Dhabi, then we're in Edmonton. So it's those are all huge fights too. So every single week, I didn't really have time to you start not taking care of little things and injuries, and that stuff starts to add up. So these coaches, shout out to all these coaches that are out there on the circuit, and then the Dana White fights, and then the local fights, and then or whatever fights, and it adds up, man. So, but you got to remember that week for the guys is the biggest week of their freaking life. So it doesn't really matter what your problems are. If you're alive, you're good, and you just got to be there for them.
Well, I know when people say to us, right, man, commentators, I don't know how you guys do it. It's like we have nothing on the coaches. And if people knew the extent and the lengths that you guys go to, right? Like your itinerary to Abu Dhabi, the General Sayif Saud, in and out in Abu Dhabi. Crazy. Just absolutely insane. I don't really know where to begin with you. I want to get to Kennedy and Zechiku and Jeff Neal and everybody else and Ryan Spann, but there were some rumblings with Brandon Moreno that going into the Brandon Royval fight that maybe he wasn't 100%. And I don't know if it's as trite as saying taking one for the team, but this version this weekend is giving fans a lot to be excited about. So where's your level of enthusiasm after what you saw this past weekend?
Well, I mean, I'm right along with everybody else. I mean, the kid looked like a champion. He looked fantastic. He was in complete control, showed so many different weapons, the kicks, the punches, the elbows, great takedown defense, great awareness with his distance management. I mean, it was an A+ performance. And, as a coach, John, and Kenny knows this too, you just love to see your guys shine in front of everybody else, because I've seen that, right? And this is what we've been working on. We've been working on this version of Brandon since I got him. And I thought in the Figgy fight, we did that. It was a very clean fight, unbelievable performance, and such a good win. And then we had the Pantoja fight, which is an all-time amazing fight. And so both of those fights were really good. It's hard to be mad at a kid after the Pantoja fight. I mean, that fight was unbelievable. And then we had Albazi. We were on our way back, and Mexico City, the altitude, it's a whole lot of stuff that Brandon went down there to do his camp, and I would go and visit him every week, but he was gone for like 5 weeks, and we worked hard, we coordinated, but he was away from his family. And like, I really feel like that's his motor. Like that's the wood for his fireplace. It's his kids, his girls. And you guys understand that. Like, I mean, you could be just so sick of the world. You walk inside, your kids come up to you and say, "Hey, Dad," and you're like, "You know what? Send me back out there, man. I'm ready."
Yep.
Like, your kids are so powerful. And I think him just being away from all that, he was just, he just didn't even want to be there that night. So the sad thing is that after 2 incredible fights, just one bad fight, and everybody's talking shit, oh, he's washed and he's done. It's like, man, dude, you guys have a short memory. So for him to go out there and masterpiece and style out there like that, it was really awesome.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what you do to kind of, get that redemption. He looked amazing. Best I've seen him, especially his hands. Everything just looked really, really sharp. And I guess, how much do you think that had to do with like him taking some time off to kind of rebuild mentally, physically, technically?
It's like this, right? And, John knows this, right? Like, we love what we do. I mean, I remember John, I always bring this story up. John coming up to me in Brazil, 2013. I think it was 13. He's like, "I just want to know how to say your name correctly." And I was like, I fucking love this guy. Like, like this guy came, and it was like a far sprint. It was like a 50 or 100 yards away. He was like, "Hey, hold on." And I was like, "Hey," and it's the way he said it. And, obviously when your name is Safe, right? People your whole life, huh? What? Especially the way I spell it. But you got to be true to who you are. So I'm never changing my name. And he went out of his way to do that. And I remember I was like, man, what a good dude. There's a lot of passion there. Well, I see John some weeks, we've been on the road for I don't know how long, and we look at each other like we just want to go hide in a closet. Like you lose your perspective sometimes when you're in the middle of the war over and over and over again. We all do in life, right? So sometimes when you take a step back, if someone told me and John, "You guys are done, you can't come back to the UFC," boy, I bet you we'd be super motivated within seconds, and it's just human nature, man. You start to not really see things for what they are. And the worst part is in fighting, if that gets in your mindset and you don't want to be in there, you're just not motivated, you just want to be done, then you get those flat performances. And you saw Bruno Silva talking about that in the media not long ago, about the mental part. And you're like, "Hey, I just can't figure it out." And, Brandon is obviously really mentally incredible. But at that time, I just felt like the best thing for me to do is just, say, "Hey, man, we're not doing this. Like, you can't do this for a little while." And he wanted to. A couple weeks later, he called me, "Coach, man, like, I'm bored." I was like, "Nah, man, I just got to keep going." And, so much credit to him. We really built our trust to a whole nother level, because I know he wanted to compete, and I know he's a competitor. He loves to compete, and to take that away. But then he found that perspective, I think, in that rest and his family, and just got that love again, right? It's like, all right, you know what? Now let's go back. And it just worked out really well.
The General Sayif Saud with us here on the Anik Florian podcast. Go ahead, Ken Flo.
I was going to say, so was that something you saw in Brandon, or was that kind of just based on your experience in dealing with other fighters, Sayif?
I mean, it was a combination of both, Ken. I mean, you see a guy killing it in the room, and then fight week, you can see the energy dipping, and then you can just see it, and this, you guys know this, man. You guys have been around a long time. You can kind of see it in the eyes sometimes, right? In fight week, you're like, this guy, you saw Brandon's walkout. He wasn't losing to anybody. You could have put anybody in there. He was so ready. And I believe he's the best fighter in the world at 125 pounds, the most balanced, I believe. And with the new scoring off of damage and stand up and stuff, I really feel like he's, he is, that Pantoja fight happened now, I think we would definitely have won with the scoring being what it is, right? So I don't know, man. I'm really excited about his future, and it was an awesome night. We're still the team. I just talked to the team yesterday, and we're all really, really happy about it, man.
Safe. So with us here on the Anik Florian podcast, the general out of Fortis MMA. So, gosh, man, it's like there's so much to talk about when it comes to all of your athletes right now. But oftentimes when we talk to Anthony Lionheart Smith about a man he has twice beaten in Ryan Spann, he just sort of talks so superlatively about this guy. And, you know, sometimes I stop short of saying Jeff Neal is your star pupil, right? Because I think maybe it denigrates somebody like Ryan Spann, right? But how far can we take this fucking Ryan Spann, man? Because like it seems right now, like, you know, I think the fan base and me, like, we want to buy in. Should we buy in?
You know what I love though, and I got to give a lot of credit to the fans, because with like Ryan, with Jeff, you know, these guys are fighting the best guys in the world, right? They're going to slip sometimes, but those two guys with their style and how they finish and how violent they are, people get on that train. So like people will get on the train for Ryan. He'll have an incredible performance, Dom Reyes, and then he'll lose. You know, he'll lose. He had some inconsistency, but once he gets going again, people get right back on the train. Everybody sees the potential and the incredible skill set. And I'll tell you, I always said Ryan, I think, is the best, maybe one of the best skilled athletes at that size. His submissions are incredible. His wrestling is excellent. His bottom game is incredible. I mean, he's like a giant cat, you know. I mean, it's crazy. His hands, he's got power in the left hook, right? We saw that Dom Reyes, power in the right hand. We saw that in OSP. I mean, he'll put you down with either one. Speed, length, you know. I mean, he is so dangerous everywhere, and that's how he fights. When he's on point, you know, and he's confident. Again, we talk about, you see it. So it's just all about getting the guys to do the work. And, you know, easier said than done. These guys all went on 4 and 5 fight winning streaks, all got in the top 15.
Right.
They're fighting the toughest guys in the world. Man, it's hard. You know, you get injuries, you get hurt, things happen. So I'm so proud of these guys to still be here, you know, still making everybody so excited 7-8 years later in the UFC, still beating, you know, guys on tough guys, and still having that opportunity to be champs. I think both those guys could be champions. Absolutely.
Yeah. And interesting to see Jeff Neal and Kennedy Nzechukwu both win recently and have an injury on the other side. And not to suggest that it took any sort of shine away, but it is interesting to see a heavyweight bodied Kennedy Nzechukwu in an octagon. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't intrigued, you know.
I got to give him credit, because this was his idea. He's like, Coach, I want to go to heavyweight. Every single time he was cutting weight, he was throwing up. Even when his weight was very low, he just had a hard time. You know, he would go there and I could just tell, like, all week he did not want to deal with that, right? Like you could just tell that he was ready to fight. But imagine if you knew you were going to puke, you know, fight week, and you were going to feel like shit on that day. And we tried all kinds of stuff, but you know, he's just getting older, and he only walks at like 240, 235. But he said, Coach, I really want heavyweight. And he was just a lot happier, you know. And we'll see. We'll talk to Mick Maynard, and we'll try to build him there, and we'll just see what happens. You know, it's all, the UFC is so competitive right now, man. You just really got to just take it one fight at a time. And I think that people start, you know, talking a lot, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And I really love Brandon's coach. Going back to Brandon, they're like, you want to fight for the belt now? He's like, nah, you know, I'll probably have to fight again. And, you know, like, I've already lost to these guys and they're in front of me. I just like the honesty, you know? And I think with Kennedy, he was en route. Both of those guys were en route to real beatdowns. And it's kind of unfortunate because, like you said, they kind of got taken away from them. But let's just do that again. Let's have another great performance and go from there.
All right, I'll get you out of here on this. And again, congratulations on all the success on the Contender Series in the UFC. It's been an incredible run, and it's crazy the ebbs and flows, right? But it has been an incredible stretch for you guys. In terms of Jeff Neal, your star pupil or otherwise, right? The last man to beat Belal Muhammad back in 2019. I know you have a good personal relationship with Belal. I know Jeff and Belal have a lot of mutual and competitive respect. But any quick thoughts on the way out on this infection for Belal, and Ian Gary stepping into a dangerous fight and keeping the division going? Colby calling for Jack Della Maddalena. What do you have for us on Jeff Neal and 70 on the way out?
Let's first talk about Belal Muhammad and give him so much credit and respect that this dude deserves, you know. And you gain respect through competition. And, you know, Jeff was the last one to beat Belal, but guess what? Then I watched Belal win 10 fights in a row. and just really came to appreciate, his mental grind. That guy, when nobody believed in him, he believed in himself. And I mean, even all the Twitter stuff, I'd be like, Bilal, man, just focus on fight. He's like, no, coach, I gotta be loud,
Yeah.
And I would be like, all right, man, whatever. But look, he proved that night he won that title. He proved every single person. He proved it to everybody. I mean, he took the longest road. So credit to him, and just let that guy just recover, man. Like, he's willing to fight anybody, nothing but respect. Osteomyelitis is a really big deal, man. If you get that, you're talking about that can kill you. It's a bone infection, spreads very, very quickly. I mean, people have to get amputations from stuff like that. And this is not a joke. So it's not like it's just a staph infection. I mean, and I'm sure he already had that and was like, I'll just do these antibiotics, I'll be fine. That's not a guy that runs away from fights. So it's just that narrative needs to really be clear. And if Bilal doesn't fight until April, like, okay, shut up, bro. Like, these other guys got the belt. Right. Leon got the belt. He fought once a year, and he would only fight in England. I mean, come on, man. Like, let's be fair. So Bilal Muhammad, nothing but respect. I think Jeff has the ability to beat him because he already has. But the other thing is that Shavkat now being up at the top, Jeff having such a good fight against both of these guys, it just makes Jeff super relevant again. Yep. And with Jeff's style, people want to see Jeff fight, and nothing but I've seen you giving Ian Gary's respect and respecting Ian Gary, like, but people don't like that style, man. And that MVP fight, I think that the stock went down a lot, not a little, a lot, because the Jeff fight, I thought was boring and a terrible fight from both of them. I thought Jeff didn't fight well. I thought Ian Gary didn't fight well. It was a very close split decision, but the fight was just kind of, it was Ian Gary running away and kind of just, he said too, I was scared to get hit and all this and all that. So credit to him, and also Jeff, Jeff failed and he could have done better. But that style is not one people really want to see. And I think that, that the division, every division in every single organization, man, they're just going to keep moving more and more to finish it, more and more to guys that are willing to go in the fire. And people say, "Oh, Bilal's got decisions," but I mean, he was pressing on the gas, dumping on his head, like he was trying.
Right.
So it doesn't matter. But when you're backing up and like running away, it looks like you're trying to play a point fighting game. Nobody wants that. So I think that's why you're not getting that call for Ian Gary. You're right. Him taking the Buckley fight is a big risk. Buckley's going to try to zero in on like he did on Wonderboy. It's basically the same fight, but I just think that's why people love Shavkat, because Shavkat is so violent. You could tell he's just trying to get close to you so he can cut you, so he can hurt you, so he can knock you out. There's not one thought process in his mind about safety, about how do I play it safe? And people love that. That's why they love Brandon. People want to see that. So I think that moving on, and that's why you see Kai Asakura getting a title shot right off the bat. Just drop him straight in. The guy's right hand is amazing. His speed is amazing. His striking is amazing. So I think that moving forward with welterweight, with whatever happens, Bilal 100%. I mean, if they want to have an interim, it's whatever. But Bilal deserves his spot. They're not going to give the Colbys and these guys that are trying to play the game. They're just done. That era of MMA is done. And I think that's not saying Gary can't knock out Buckley because he knocked out Rodriguez. He has the talent. But if he plays it safe again, that's why I believe he got that fight. He's fighting up, again.
Yeah.
He plays it safe again like that. And I mean, it's just the world's watching you, man. So nobody wants to hit that last two fights you've seen of him. Are you excited to see him fight? Like, it's just not the same. So you're only as good as your last fight. And
I get it. I mean,
nothing but respect as far as the rankings go and all that. But again, that's why you see a guy like Hamzat come back in, and they let him go because he's a finisher. He's violent. Right. It's all about violence level. So Shavkat wins that fight. That's going to be the standard, and then him and Bilal. I don't know if Shavkat's staying on the card or not. No.
I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean, I love the way you answered that. And I would like to be very clear as I sit in a room with two fighters here, right? Like, I always defer to your expertise, right? Not that I'm just some talking head, but Best of luck
you're
to
not.
Shavkat Rakhmonov and everybody else with no risk mitigation against somebody like Michael Venom Page. How does your guy Jeff Neal match up with Michael Venom Page and exercise that matchup? So I have very strong opinions about this because for me, I'm not a promoter. I understand the climate in which we are operating, right? And you're right to acknowledge Bilal as being far more offensive than people want to give him credit. Like, would Leon Edwards ever admit that Bilal like touched him up on the feet in round 1, and that was
what did Leon Edwards do? Like what did he do? He did nothing. Leon Edwards did nothing that fight. Nothing.
Hey, I love you. I know I've taken more of your time than maybe you had, but you're the man. I love you, and I might compete against my brother soon. So just get ready to make room in your.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. These two guys love each other so much, right? They keep pushing each other and pushing each other. I don't know how I feel about you fighting your brother. I mean, maybe we got to do it behind closed doors. We'll talk about it.
All right, buddy. Hey, thank you, man. Have a great day.
Later, Flo. Good seeing you.
See you, brother.
Later, boys.
See you, buddy.
There he is. Fortis MMA's General Sayif Saud with us here on the Anik and Florian podcast. Yeah, Kenny, it's a spirited conversation, the Ian Machado-Gary one. And I want to get your thoughts on Amin Zahabi before we spin it forward to this next UFC Fight Night offering coming up this weekend, featuring Carlos Prates and Neil Magny. But, Kenny, like the relative value or quality of Ian Machado-Gary's wins over Jeff Neal or Michael Venom Page is constantly called into question. But does it stand to reason? And maybe I shouldn't even offer up things like this. But if you're really trying to give Ian Machado-Gary any sort of push, right, you don't have him try to get through Michael Venom Page. And I understand his grappling is still a work in progress as he aligns with Charles Oliveira and Damian Maia and the Shoot to Box Academy. But, like, I don't know, man. Like, I understand the climate right now in terms of violence and everything else, but I don't know. I just think Ian Gary gets a bad rap for whatever reason.
Well, I think Sayif made some really good points about how the UFC sees fighters and what they want to see more importantly. And even maybe more important than that, what the fans really want to see, right? Because that's what the UFC wants to deliver. And the fans want to see action. They wanted to see destruction, and they do want to see violence, right? That's what we're here for. And not everybody, especially if you don't train in the sport, are going to be able to appreciate little things like versatility as a fighter or consistency. And these are very important things. And for a fighter, you got to do what you need to do to get that win at the end of the day. No one cares. If you are an extremely exciting fighter and you're 0-10 in the UFC, you're an exciting fighter that loses a lot, right? So you have to find that balance of being someone that people want to see, but also you need W's on your record. And that's what Ian Machado-Gary is doing at the end of the day. Sometimes you just got to get through to get the fights that you want. So it's tough, but I understand what Sayif is saying. And a lot of what he's saying is true.
No doubt. And I do like him addressing the false narrative about Bilal Muhammad's entertainment value as MMA fighter. All right, I have to ask you about Amin Zahabi, your former training partner, because I just love this family. I love Firas Zahabi as a human being, and I love his brother Amin, and it's my oversight to have not booked Amin today. We'll talk to him later this month at some point in time. But in 2019, I think he had lost 2 in a row. There was an extended layoff. He comes back in 2021, and your guy, Amin Zahabi, little Amin, now a television star, and he's won 5 fights in a row in this UFC gauntlet of a bantamweight division. He is a ranked UFC bantamweight, and I'm not sure if the ceiling is championship, Kenny, but man, you got to feel absolutely elated for Amin Zahabi after the big win over Pedro Munoz in Edmonton.
I am. I'm very happy. I'm very proud. This is a kid who I knew it was just a matter of time before he was going to be in the UFC. He was working very hard on his skills for a long time under the tutelage and guidance of his brother, Firas Zahabi, one of the best coaches, one of the best minds in the world. And yes, they are an amazing family. And to see Amin, and not just as a fighter be successful, but also be successful outside of the cage now as an analyst and commentator. It's great to see. He is extremely talented, and he went against a guy in Pedro Munoz who is very dangerous and very talented in his own right. And to get a win against someone like that shows that he's arrived. He's ready for the elite competition, and was super excited to see him get the win there, especially in Edmonton.
Congrats to Amin Zahabi. We will definitely book him later this month on the Anik and Florian podcast. Jasmine Jazz Divisius, Yusuf Zalal, Dustin Stoltzfus, Charles Jourdain, all getting performance of the night bonuses. just a good night overall for the UFC. And to Aaron Blanchfield, just what a response after that start, Kenny, right? After losing the first 2 rounds to Rose Namajunas, to come back and get the fight to her world, just complete relentlessness. And yeah, it sounds trite to say she was not going to be denied on this night, right? But she was not going to be denied.
I was pretty convicted on Rose Namajunas, man. And then, you see those 2 rounds from Rose and you're like, yep, this is the way it's going to go. Gosh, I know everything. And then all of a sudden Blanchfield decides to go, no, I'm not done yet. And she showed the kind of heart and determination of someone who wants to be someone in the sport, who wants to be a champion. And although it wasn't pretty at times, man, she found a way to get it done. And at the end of the fight, I was like, she deserves every bit of that win. Amazing performance. She wanted it more than Rose. It's as simple as that to me. And she was not going to be denied. She injected her grappling into the conversation and got it done. That was beautiful.
All right, today's Anik Florian podcast is presented by DraftKings. Stay tuned because you'll hear more about DraftKings and all it has to offer throughout the show. DraftKings, the crown is yours. All right, we go 3 wide once again, and we welcome in our chief handicapper. He is Big Gun Brian Petrie, and much to the dismay, Brian, of some of our fans, we have killed the pronunciation of the week as a segment on a weekly basis, but we brought it back today. We brought it back.
And I love how the general says Shavkat. You say nothing. If I said Shavkat, I'd be roasted. You let Sayif Saud get away with it
from
like
Wisconsin?
10 times. Yeah,
Is he from Wisconsin?
This guy's smiling like, yes, Sayif, you're so smart. Yeah. Look at your beautiful eyes. Yeah. Say
John was cringing inside every time.
I had to have been.
Now you're making me want to pull up the Shavkat Rakhmonov file and see if I'm actually saying it correctly.
Shavkat Rakhmonov.
So
I think that's it. Yeah.
We got a name file for you today.
Sure.
And he addressed this at his media scrum here during fight week. He's making his UFC debut. He says, just call me RDR.
Sure.
It's like we have an RDA, Rafael Dos Anjos. He wants to be RDR. What he is a former one championship middleweight and light heavyweight champion and a jiu-jitsu black belt. And this weekend he makes his UFC debut against GM3 Gerald Mershart. So BP, I don't know how your motor's running today, but let's hear what you have for us on RDR.
So I'm a fan of this guy. I've watched a lot of this guy's tape, and a lot of different announcers say his name different, so I'm just going to take a shot here. Rainier de Ritter is what I go with.
Not bad. I mean, you sounded like a full-throated, red-blooded American male right there. Let's hear. That's what you are. I'm not going to ask you who you voted for either. Let's listen to the pronunciation of the week. RDR. Cody Merrill, what do you have?
My name is Rainier de Ritter, RDR. Rainier de Ritter, RDR.
Rainier de Ritter.
Yeah.
Rainier de
His
Ritter.
accent.
All right.
Yeah.
Toughie.
It is UFC Fight Night Magny versus Prates. I wonder if Carlos Prates likes those Parliament lights with the recessed filter, or if he's more of a camel guy. Anyway, featured prelim, fellas. Just wanted a few thoughts on this, given the big price. Not sure if you have anything on the straw weights, but Denise Gomes, minus 520 or so, taking on Karolina Kowalkiewicz, who is plus 390. So Gomes has won 3 of 4. Kowalkiewicz, of course, former world title challenger. That was all the way back in 2016. Interesting, Bri, this current version of Kowalkiewicz under Pahumpa at American Top Team. She's won 4 of 5, sort of a resurgent stage of her MMA career. She is coming off a loss to Yasmin Lucindo at UFC 301 in Rio back in May, but active in terms of the competition cycle at this stage of her career. But plus 390 here against Denise Gomes. Anything for us on the 115ers, BP?
Yeah, every fight we're picking, the lines are pretty wide. Vegas is either going to have a good week or they're going to take a fucking bath. This one is the most egregious one to me. Denise Gomes, she's good. She's knocked out a few people, but she's knocked out people that have been knocked out before and maybe have a durability issue. Her takedown game, I think, is very basic. I think she's aggressive. She's a bull in there. She's tough, but Karolina Kowalkiewicz has fought everybody. She had a nice little run, stumbled. Now she's back. Volume from Karolina here. This is going to be power versus volume. I think the takedowns are going to be a wash, and we're doing a wash in volume versus power, and you're giving me plus 390. Yeah, sign me up. I'm taking the dog here. I think it's too close. I think it's going to go over. I think it's going to go to decision. We get some funky judges. We're going to get a fucking dub in our pocket, and that's almost 4-1 on our money.
Look at this guy hitting Karolina Kowalkiewicz plus 390. Ken Flo, Denise Gomes minus 520, Kovalkiewicz plus 390. Your thoughts?
I think Gomez is a tough out for Kovalkiewicz. However, she isn't Yasmin Lucindo. And I agree with what a lot of Brian is saying. And I think Kovalkiewicz has the opportunity to use that volume to get the win here. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of grappling here in this one. I think Kovalkiewicz might try to look for some takedowns there, but more than anything else, I think this fight will probably take place on the feet. And while I do think that Gomez probably hits harder, I think Kovalkiewicz could be effective if she gets off to a good start, especially. Sometimes she doesn't let her hands go. If she can get off to a good start, stay active, she can win this fight. I think there's a lot of value there. So I'm with BP here.
Two smart
and
guys.
You can be sure, right, with Marcos Damata, Pahumpa in the corner, right? Plus 390. He's probably salivating. We'll see how it goes with the strawweights. And of course, Kempfo wants to say to me, Johnny, if you really want to know, I was trying to watch Denise Gomes film at 4:30 a.m. Eastern, and my ESPN.
I really was.
That's
how it started.
Saw the tweet.
All right, main card opener, middleweight, Mansour Abdul Malik, minus 375, taking on Dushko Todorovic, who is plus 295. So the Eric Nixick trained Abdul Malik, 6-0 as a pro, as he arrives at this UFC debut, BP. Had a big stoppage win on the Contender Series in August, now making the quick turn for his UFC debut against the guy Todorovic, who, when we sat down with him in advance of his UFC debut, suggested that he wanted to be the Novak Djokovic of MMA for Serbia, in terms of what Djokovic has done for the sport of tennis for Serbia.
Good for him.
Todorovic right now 3-4 in the UFC. I don't know if Djokovic has ever lost 4 matches actually in his career. Todorovic right now 3-4 in the UFC, and hasn't fought in a long time. Bryce sustained an injury in the fight with Christian Leroy Duncan. That was March 2023 at UFC 286. Another knee injury earlier this year. Long layoff and an undefeated opponent in the crosshairs for Todorovic this weekend. What do you have for us on this?
Did you guys see Malik's Contender Series? I mean, the guy's upper body and back. It's like,
I did not. Did I butcher his name? Is it Malik?
I don't know. What did I say?
I'm going to pull up the file. I said Abdul Malik, but maybe it's
Malik. It might
but
be
as
Malik.
you were, I'll look it up as you're handicapping.
Just bricked up, right? He's very raw, very green, but people in Vegas, down on String Couture, love this kid because of his power, because of his speed, his athleticism. Todorovic has been, he hurt himself in the Christian Leroy Duncan fight. Other than that, all his wins are guys outside the UFC. Doesn't have a win with a current guy on the roster. And when you fight Todorovic, you have to throw heavy hands. That's what Malik does. He throws heavy hands. I don't think he's going to turn off the gas at all. I think Todorovic is going to want to grapple a little bit here. Malik's athleticism should get him to the feet, even though he does have a pretty weak outside the UFC record because he's young. But people believe in this kid. He's training in a fucking shark room down there at Stream Couture. So I like Malik here. If that's how you say his name, John, I apologize. But yeah, he's going to be a future star if he continues to train, keeps his head on, and doesn't fuck up or anything like that. He's going to be special.
Can't fly. I worry about Todorovic's knees, right? Knee injuries, back-to-back years here. Perhaps the biggest issue could be the opponent, Mansour Abdul Malik. We're going with Malik. My apologies in calling him Malik. Mansour Abdul Malik, Kenny, minus 375. Born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Wrestled a couple years at the University of Maryland, and making his UFC maiden voyage here this weekend as a pretty big favorite. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and going around YouTube, watching his fights, dude. Abdul Malik, he likes throwing people on their heads. I mean, this guy is so powerful and relentless and aggressive. I think his style will definitely resonate with the fans. So I'm excited for this debut from him. And I like this fight for him a lot as well. And he's not just a wrestler. He's not just a guy that can throw you all over the octagon. He's got some serious power as well, whether it's on the feet or with his ground and pound. The dude is a problem. I do think there's some shaping involved because he is still very raw, like BP said. However, he's with the right coach in Eric Nixick. He's in the right spot. He has a lot of good training partners that are going to push him and help him to develop. And excited to see his debut, man. I think he could be something very special. He definitely is very, very gifted.
Got a sneaking suspicion Ken Flo might have some sort of parlay built around Mansour Abdul Malik. All right, strawweight division, 14th ranked Jillian Robertson, minus 395, taking on number 13, Luana Pinheiro, who is plus 310. So Title contention finally here, BP, for the roster staple, the Savage Jillian Robertson, 11-6 in the UFC, back-to-back wins now. Poliana Viana, Michelle Waterson Gomez. She's still just 29, coming up on 7 years in the UFC in December, and a big chalk favorite here this weekend against the higher-ranked Brazilian. BP, lead us off here if you'd be so kind.
Yeah, if she was a lower number, I'd be putting $1,000 on her. I think she's an absolute lock this week, and I think Pinheiro is going to want to grapple, and I think you don't want to grapple Robertson. Jillian Robertson is very crafty on the ground, scrambles. She always putting you in compromising position. She goes for it. She's not a grappler that just holds position. She's looking to take you out of the fight. And as she gets more and more confident in the UFC, as she has fought just the fucking who's who in the two divisions, I think she's getting more confident in her skills and her game. And I like her heavy in this spot here. Minus 395 is tough for me to reach for. But I mean, listen, if you got the bankroll, I would do it. Maybe even by submission. But I don't know what that prop is right now. But I'm going to go Robertson.
There aren't that many walkouts that I seek out. Jillian Robertson walking out to 50 cents PIMP is one of them. So Pinheiro, Ken Flo's dropped 2 in a row. Amanda Hebos, Angela Hill. She was finished in both of those fights. And those came on the heels of a split decision win over the Karate Hottie in a fight that truly could have gone either way. Price kind of feels right to me, minus 395 or so for Jillian Robertson. Kenny, who do you love?
This is a very interesting fight, man. You know, I feel like Luana Pinheiro has a lot of potential, okay? And I feel like, you know, she's just kind of waiting to kind of put it all together. You know, sometimes it's her striking that fails her. Sometimes it's her conditioning. Sometimes it's her pacing. But man, when she's putting together those judo throws, it is a thing of beauty, and she has the toughness. She just has to be more technical and make some better decisions during the fight. And when she does put it together, man, I think we're going to see some amazing performances. We could see that here against Jillian Robertson. She's knocking on that door. But as Brian said, I think Robertson's going to be the better ground grappler here. Whether she can put Pinheiro on her back or not, I'm not sure. I think she's going to try, even if she has to maybe go to her back. I think Robertson is that good where she can get reversals off of her back. And I think about, you know, striking wise, they're about even. Pinheiro might have a little bit more power, but she's a little bit more wild. Robertson has maybe more versatility, a little bit more technique. So I'm going to lean the way of Robertson, but I do see some value in Pinheiro here. Just consistency wise, I'll probably stick with Robertson though.
Masterfully done as usual, Ken Flo. We now transition to the middleweight division. If you ain't Dutch, you ain't much. The UFC debut is here for RDR, Rainier de Ridder, minus 298. Taking on Gerald Meerschaert, who is plus 240. So RDR, Bry, former one championship, 2-division champ, 17-2 as an MMA pro, 11 career wins by submission, 4 wins by knockout. Good test for him right out of the chute here in GM3. RDR has said, same shit, different day, but he's a southpaw. I'm going to choke this dude out. Right, Ken Flo? What do you have for us on this one, Brian Petrie? Lead us off.
This is my main event. No disrespect to Magny and Prates. This fight isn't what I'm looking forward to the most because, you know me, I'm a nerd. I dug into the old Reddit boys back in the day. A couple years ago, hey, this RDR guy will beat anybody. He'll beat Izzy at 185. He'll beat, and I had to dig into this guy. Not do I not think he'd beat Izzy, but he was very good. He's only lost a Malkin twice, right? He got knocked out, then he retired in the fight. When he did, the second fight, the rematch, he did very well in that fight. He just, didn't have enough gas in him. But he's very good. He's 6'4", rangy. His striking's becoming better. He's tough. He's durable. And he's crafty. He's got an inverted triangle. He's got several darts chokes. He's got a lot of fancy submissions with those long legs and long arms. Then you enter GM3. This guy's a fucking man. Okay, there's no cutting it about it. The mustache is glorious. He goes in there and he's in shape and he fights and he can beat anybody. He holds records in the UFC. He's been in the UFC forever and he's phenomenal. However, my MMA brain, my gambling brain, when you get GM3 at plus money, you want to take it, but I can't get there. I'm sorry, Gerald. I like Ritter here. I think Ritter's just going to be a little too much on the feet, and I think they're going to play on the ground a little bit. And I think he's just going to be one step ahead of Meerschaert. I think Meerschaert has been submitted. He has been submitted before, and I'm a little worried about the chokes with him. But I hope I'm wrong because, goddamn, what a glorious mustache, and I like him. I'm a fan of him. I just think this is a bad matchup for him.
Kenflo value proposition. Gerald Meerschaert has made bettors money across a UFC career that has him 12-9 in 21 UFC appearances. Last fight at Epic upset win, rallying past Edmund Shabazi, and that was August 24th. And here he is, right, turning it around quickly, sort of a UFC middleweight division Iron Man. 2+ months later, he's won 2 straight by submission, 11 submissions in the UFC, puts GM3 tied for 3rd all time. He is 37-17 as an MMA pro, and not surprised probably is he to see a plus number next to his name. Kenflo, your thoughts on the 85ers?
Well, I love the fact that you brought up the Shabazian fight, right? His last fight. And that's one of those that, you know, if you've watched his career, that is something I think a lot of UFC fans will always remember Meerschaert for. Coming back amidst some insane adversity. He took a lot of punishment. Round 1, round 2, was able to come back and get the submission win. That arm triangle was a thing of beauty. And it just showed how damn tough he was. It looked like he was completely out of that fight, but he was not. And it was just a brilliant performance from him. Now, you know, when you see GM3, you know, he always has his submissions in his back pocket. He could potentially pull that off here against De Ridder, but I think that De Ridder, he's a little bit too athletic, or he's going to be certainly more athletic than GM3 here. And I think the grappling's about comparable here. And that's where it's going to be tough. You know, Gerald isn't the fastest guy in the world, but he finds a way to get it done. If he can put De Ridder on his back, I think the Dutchman's going to have some problems there, especially if he's able to do it consistently. I do see value here with Gerald Meerschaert, but I think Rainier De Ridder, if I said that correctly, should get the nod by decision.
All right, that brings us to the co-main event. It was going to be Cody Garbrandt and Miles Johns, but Cody No Love is a no-go. So co-main event should be a frenetic affair at bantamweight. Bernardo Sopai minus 340 taking on Ricky Turcios plus 270. So Sopai's UFC debut, bro, on short notice against Vinicius Oliveira was just insane. He reps All Stars MMA, the GOAT Shed, so a good corner, Andreas Michael, Awesome Zaidi, among others. There's a Khamzat Chimaev connection there as well. He's still just 24 years of age, but sustained a lot of concussive damage, Bri, I would think, in that UFC debut. What do you think in terms of the sophomore effort here? He's minus 340 against Turcios.
Yeah, I really liked him in that Oliveira fight, but, you know, and he was doing well. And then he just ran in. I mean, well, he started getting pieced up a little bit and just ran into not really ran into it. He collided with a knee. I think he's very good. I think his cardio checks all the boxes that I want to see, in his overall game's good. Turcios, this guy's a wild man, though. Yes, he just got choked out by Rojas Jr. He didn't look great in that fight. He got kind of pinned to the ground and got a little out-muscled, which was a little surprising. I mean, Rojas Jr. is a big kid for that division, but Turcios is kind of a guy that's going to cash you your tickets on the over. He's not going to get finished. He's not going to finish anybody over 2.5. It's going to be the play here. That's going to be a lock. Put it on there. It's going to be heavy, but put the money on it. And, you know, I would like to go Turcios here, but I guess I'm being a little bit of a bitch and a little bit of a soy boy. I won't go all dogs here. I'm going to go Sopaj. I think he's the better fighter. He has to prove it. Doesn't have a UFC win yet, even though he looked good considering the highlight reel knockout. He's going to have to prove it here. And I think he can prove it against Turcios. I think Turcios is just an okay kind of guy, and this is a good way to go prove it. But he could get drowned as well with that high pace. So give me Sopaj.
Kenflo, Ricky Turcios 1-2 since winning the Ultimate Fighter. We'll see the extent to which he can respond here to that submission loss to the Chihuihuis guy, Raul Rosas Jr. Kenflo, what do you have for us on the co-main?
Yeah, you know, Turcios is very game. He's a tough dude. He does not want to go away easily. You know, he's got some skills on the feet, got some skills on the ground. He's a little too wild for my liking, however, because he then gets exposed on a technical level. And sometimes some of the decisions he makes during the fight, he lets his emotions kind of lead the way a little bit. And that has served him well at times. But once you start getting against the kind of the more elite guys in the UFC, that can cost you. And I think that could cost him here, because Sopai, from what I saw, you know, in his previous fights before he got to the UFC, and even his last fight, there were some flashes of brilliance. This guy is extremely athletic. He is very good on the feet. He has very good takedowns, good positioning. I don't think he paced himself properly. And I think, speaking of emotions, he let his emotions kind of maybe get the better of him in that fight. Kind of went into automatic pilot and realized he was a little bit too tired at a certain point in that fight, and really paid for it in a devastating flying knee knockout, one of the worst that I've seen. Yeah. Assuming he has recovered from that, I think Sopai, if you're going to make a mistake like that, you do that in your UFC debut and you come back strong. I think we see a big performance here from Sopai, and I think he's going to be someone to watch in the future as well.
Nice.
All right, right back to Ken Flo on the main event, UFC Fight Night, Magny versus Prates, and perhaps your Rookie of the Year hardware is going to go to the Nightmare Carlos Prates. Welterweight division here, Kenny. Carlos Prates minus 800, number 15, Neil Magny is plus 650. So Prates, all the rage at present, 31 years of age, really coming into his own, 3-0 thus far in the UFC with as many knockouts, all of them here this year. Trevin Giles, Chuck Buffalo, Li Jingliang, and now his first UFC main event, Ken Flo against Neil Magny. Your thoughts?
I'm really excited to see how Prates does here against a real veteran in Neil Magny, a guy who has been around the block and then some. He knows how to also surprise people in these spots. And every time I go back and I watch a Prates fight, and that's what I did this morning, for whatever reason, I don't come away so crazy impressed. The finishes are beautiful. He executes when he gets you hurt. It's awesome. But up until then, it's kind of like, it almost seems like kind of an easy, like a back and forth fight. Like he takes a lot of shots that maybe he shouldn't. And it's not like, for me, when I see it, I don't see a clean performance where it just looks like he dominates start to finish and makes it look easy. He is a potent striker, and when he gets you hurt, he knows how to take you out. That I love. And if he does that against Magny here, for sure he could win. But do not underestimate Magny. Magny's ability to jab you from the outside, and Magny's ability to make it a grind up against the cage, to put you on your back and make your life miserable there. And Prates, we've seen him on the feet, and he's good there. On the ground, I don't think he's great there, and Magny can give you problems, especially a guy like this. And I'm not necessarily saying I'm going to put money. We will see what happens later, but I do see some value on Magny here at plus 650. Plus 650, guys. I mean,
huge number.
Maybe, but Prates is certainly dangerous. I'm not sure it warrants the minus 800 against someone like Magny, though.
Huge number on Carlos Prates and climbing right now on DraftKings Sportsbook. Ken Flo, this city in Sao Paulo, spelled Taubate. Taubate? No?
Taubate. It'd probably be Taubate.
Taubate, Sao Paulo. On the map, courtesy of Carlos Prates. And I like hearing Kenny peel back the film, Bri, right? Because Prates I referred to as being all the rage, but I think when sharp minds peel back the film, it isn't necessarily something that is perfect. And certainly Christian Allen and Neil Magny can peel it apart a little bit. A few things on Magny, if I could, real quick, BP.
Of course.
Still holding on to a ranking, number 15 in the world. 22 UFC wins, have him tied with Max Holloway, Charles Oliveira, Dustin Poirier, and Damian Maia for fourth all time. He was stopped by Michael Morales his last time out, but he did begin the year with that upset win over Mike Malott, right? So still wicked competitive. He is now 37 years old in a UFC tenure that dates to UFC 157 in 2013. And I bring up 2013 because, incidentally, that was the last time in a year in which Magny lost 2 in a row. He looks to avoid that fate this weekend as a huge underdog. BP, how do you see the main event playing out?
And we just talked a couple weeks ago. Neil Magny is going to Neil Magny, right? We were trying to add that as a verb there. And Magny, somebody. I love Prates, right? Prates is he smokes heaters, he burns one, you know what I mean? Loves his mom, got a close rate, and he parties hard. He admits it, right? I don't know how sustainable that's going to be, but he's phenomenal when he gets in there. And I saw something different when I watched the film like Kenny. Kenny saw a guy that likes to create a brawl. I see a guy that's just very calm, right? That could bite him in the butt as well. Like, you're calm. You're like, I'm in control. I can take these shots. Either you get clipped or, the round ends and you're like, oh shit, I'm 3 rounds behind or whatever the case. But I see a guy that's calm in there, that knows his skills, that knows that left hand's potent. I love watching the southpaw work. He's a long-rangey guy that actually knows how to use his range. With the jump-in knees, when you think you're out of range, he jumps in and knees you right to the solar plexus like he did Chuck Buffalo. The guy's really, really good.
Nasty.
But listen, Magny is going to want to clinch. He's going to make it ugly. He's going to want to get you to the ground and beat you up. That's how Magny's going to get this fight done. However, Magny, as he goes on, is a little bit hittable now, right? His defense isn't there. I don't know if his durability is there as much as it used to be at being at 37. He could still easily win this fight. And I encourage everyone out there, if you got $10, you got $20, maybe throw on Neil Magny, 6-1 on your money. That's not a bad price. I can't get there on Prates because I looked at him by knockout. It's currently minus 400, which again, I'm not playing a prop at minus 4-1. I'm just not doing it. He's overhyped, or excuse me, he's overpriced in my opinion right now. I don't think he's overhyped. I think he's very, very good. I like Prates. I'm picking Prates. I can tell you right now, I won't be betting Prates.
Carlos Prates saying this week that there was a Randy Brown fight at Madison Square Garden that nearly came together, and he felt like that fight was actually easier than this one against Neil Magny. Time will tell, as the Apex, I believe, is the venue that opens up for these gentlemen this weekend, if I'm not mistaken, after Edmonton last week. All right, let us update the standings real quickly before we get into the bets. Team Petrie was minus $41 and change, but you're in the red no more. A couple of straight wager hits. 500 on Mike Malott, minus 265. That paid 188.68. And then the straight wager whack on Eamon Zahabi, 500 paid you 550. He was plus 110. So plus 738.68 for BP. And Magny Black year to date, plus 697.07. Team Florian year to date was minus 266.80. Went 1-2 on the week. Derek Lewis wager was no actioned. You lost $100 straight on Rose Namajunas, 500 on Amir Albazi, but you did hit for 200 on Eamon Zahabi. That paid you 220 for the week, minus 380. Year to date, minus 646.80. The lead for Petrie, 1343 and 87 cents. But as you guys know, we've had some wild swings over the last 6 weeks or so. All right, Place Your Bets is brought to you by JohnAnik.com. Our design of which I am most proud, at least on the One More Sleep front for Madison Square Garden, some Patrick Ewing imagery. It's an incredible design, courtesy of Average Joe Art. Right now, JohnAnik.com, 15% off our One More Sleep MSG design and every design for the Anik and Florian podcast. Right now, 15% off. Promo code One More Sleep at JohnAnik.com. All right. Place your bets. $1,000 for UFC Fight Night. Magny versus Prates. Next week, of course, it is UFC 309, and you will receive $2,000. For this week, just one band, Bri.
Yeah.
How are you spreading out your cash, kid?
Kind of glad it's one bang because a lot of these lines are wide. I had to dig deep here. So since I'm going against my boy GM3, I'm going against that fucking True Blood American. I got to put my money where my mouth is. So I'm going to go 500 on RDR by double chance. So it's a double chance bet on DraftKings right now. It's plus 100 is the odds. Double chance for him to win by KO or submission. I think he gets it out of there. I can see a TKO happening. I can see a submission happening. Okay. So that's $500. And then if we travel down the card a little bit, John, follow me here. We're going to go 500 on Chuck Buffalo. 500 on Chuck Buffalo. Him against Ellensberger is going to be, it's going to be nasty, but I think Chuck Buffalo is a little more nastier.
Chuck Buffalo, Charles Radke fighting Matthew Ellensberger. What a matchup, by the way.
Great fight. Great fight.
What an absolute bang.
And I had the line currently at minus 162, John. Sorry, I should have gave that to you.
No, you're good. I'll take your word for it. All right, Ken Flo, $1,000 to play with. Who do you like?
Yes, sir. Let's do a 2-fight parlay for $900. We're going to put Abdul Malik, and Sopai on that parlay to win, and then we're going to put $100 on Mr. Neil Magny. Let's go, Neil.
There you go.
Wouldn't that be something if Neil Magny somehow, some way does it again? More from Brian Petrie on his own podcast, the MMA Takes podcast. You can follow him on X at Brian Petrie MMA. My man, have a great rest of your day. We appreciate your contributions. Quick turn. We'll talk to you live Monday to look at UFC 309, my man.
Sounds good, boys. Looking forward to it.
There he is. Cincinnati's finest, Brian Petrie, with us here on the Anik and Florian podcast. And just like that, another live episode, I should say, is in the books. We will be back on Monday. Full preview with predictions for UFC 309, Jones versus Miocic. I am looking right now at the second iteration of the fight card. We are very excited for that. Don't forget, remember the show with Bilal Muhammad and Jason Anik over on the Anik and Florian podcast YouTube channel. Bilal with some extensive comments about his infection and condition last week, so be sure you check that out as well. Also over on the Odd Shark YouTube page, if you are an NFL fan, my twin brother and I go head-to-head with our weekly NFL picks every week, and Jay went 5-0 once again in week 9, so he's probably worth tailing. Also, don't forget, KennyFlorian.com is live as well. And we can't wait to talk with all of you fine folks coming up on Monday. Thanks to everybody tuning in live and otherwise. Our producer is Cody Merrow. Thank you to our guest, Ray Longo, the General Sayif Saud, BP as well. For KenFlo, I'm John Anik. Oh, don't forget, next Friday, by the way, we have an appearance, I think like 9:30 to 1 a.m. in New York City. So details to come on that coming up next Monday. That's with Cuervo. Stay tuned for that. For KenFlo, I'm John Anik. Now we're really getting out of here. Tell your friends about the show if you're so inclined. Yo, fucking later.